Hello everyone, the Flying Scotsman here, and welcome to episode 2 of Academic August. Now, last week I said that I wasn't just going to be focusing on edutainment titles like LGR does in Edutainment Month, which is actually superior to this, by the way, so you probably should go and watch that instead of this. What I was going to do was to also focus on other bits of software and maybe even hardware, if I can get a hold of it, that I was exposed to at school and that may or may not have been useful in an educational environment. So, in that spirit, what we have here is an example of something, well, the subject matter of this video, if I'm going to be honest. This is an integrated software package. And what that means is it has a lot of functions all within the one software package. Yeah, so it's basically like going to one of those supermarkets that has a McDonald's, a dry cleaners, or even a Thomas Cook if you're, if your supermarket is that hell-bent on money, or something. You know, basically everything all under one roof. You know, like one of those super sports centers, you can do all the sports. Well, this is kind of the software equivalent. Now, a popular example of an integrated software package is actually what we're going to be looking at in this video specifically. And that would be the integrated Office suite. Now, of course, on the computer, you have had examples of Office suites that are a bunch of standalone programs, some of which have varying levels of integration between one program and the other. But back in the 70s and 80s, that wasn't necessarily the case, that you would get all your programs from the one vendor. I mean, quite often it would be quite popular to have Lotus 123 managing your spreadsheets, but having MicroProse WordStar for word processing. And then if you wanted a database, you could either use a spreadsheet or you could use something like DBase, if you're any good with that, and so on and so forth. But the problem with this is not only was it expensive to buy all your programs separately, but especially if you were buying them from different vendors, they would all have different keyboard commands to get around them, because obviously, in the 70s and 80s, we didn't really have mice, not that much anyway, not the vast majority of people. So it would, each program, you would have to learn a completely different set of commands in order to be able to use each individual program. And your machine might not have been able to run all of them anyway. And this is where the integrated software package comes in. Things like Apple's AppleWorks on the Apple II, or AlphaWorks on the PC. Later, Lotus Works, or even Lotus Symphony. Now, what these are, these integrated Office suites, basically they're cut down, well, they're not necessarily cut down, but basic functionality programs all integrated together under the one software program. So, as you can see here, I have Lotus Works version 1.0 up and running. This is from the late 80s or early 90s. Yep, 1990. And this has a database, word processor, spreadsheet, communications program, and you can access DOS from within Lotus Works, and then you could go back to it. So as you can see, we're still in Lotus Works, but we're also in MS-DOS. So we could do stuff. list a directory. Yes, that's very nice. And then we just exit when we want to go back into Lotus Works. What all this allows us to do is to have different functionality in programs like, you know, spreadsheet, database, word processor, all using a common interface, which, like I said, in the 70s and 80s, was actually something that was quite significant. So here we have the word processor. So and then I can access the main menu. And then from here, I could open the spreadsheet program. And then I can go back to my word processor. And you get the idea. And as you've probably seen, the spreadsheet and the word processor, well, they kind of look very similar to operate, and they use the same way of accessing the menu, namely the function keys. Or in the case of Lotus Works, as you can see, we're actually able to use the mouse to be able to navigate it. But if I didn't have a mouse connected, then it would be very easy to be able to use a keyboard. And it doesn't matter if I'm in a word processor document, spreadsheet, or a database, I can actually navigate around the programs using exactly the same set of commands and the same kind of skills. And then once I'm finished, to close Lotus Works, I even get a lovely wee message. Now obviously, another example of an integrated Office suite is one that you'd probably be expecting me to talk about, and I will, is Microsoft Works. So again, it's very easy to use. You can use both the keyboard and the mouse, and you start up Microsoft Works. Actually, I think it's actually more intuitive as Microsoft Works, but then it navigates through menus the same way as you would using Windows. But even so, the first screen you see when you start Microsoft Works is new word processor, spreadsheet, database, or communication. So you can either go to new or open a document, or even just cancel, just go into Works itself. And then you'd have to start this box up again, or you could just open something from the menu. Again, you can access MS-DOS. About to run DOS, type exit to return to Works. So it's actually a lot more intuitive as to how you would get back into Microsoft Works. So, like I said, you've got a word processor. You also have a spreadsheet. You have a flat file database. And actually, it was using an integrated software package that I learned how to use databases for the first time. It was, you know, I'd started on ClarisWorks and then moved over to Microsoft Works. We're going to be taking a look at ClarisWorks in this video. But you get the idea. So that's what using an integrated Office suite was like in the 1980s. You may have also noticed, I mean, again, not a big deal now, but was quite a big deal back then, especially on something like a 286 or below, that I was able to multitask in both Lotus Works and Microsoft Works because it was an integrated software package. So I was able to have a spreadsheet and word processor open at the same time in Lotus Works and in Microsoft Works. I mean, I probably could have done this in Lotus Works as well. I had a word processing document, spreadsheet, and database open all at the same time. And that was controlled entirely by Microsoft Works because MS-DOS on its own does not have multitasking capabilities. So, what happened in the 90s then? Well, a lot of the idea about integrated office suites being useful because they offered a unified user interface across all the different sub-programs, as it were, became quite irrelevant with the rise of the graphical user interface. And it was even said in 1993 that integrated office suites were nearing their end. Basically, the death of the integrated office suite was nigh. And yes, while it was true that you didn't actually need an integrated office suite in order to be able to experience similar UI elements among different applications anymore, they still had their advantages. For example, we had, between the 80s and the 90s, we'd went from using floppy disks and running all of our programs off of floppy disks to having hard disk drives, which, yes, they were a lot more capacious than even the highest density of floppy disks. However, they still had a finite amount of space, and on smaller and lower spec machines or laptops, it wasn't always possible to install a fully functional office suite. But even so, even if you take the constraints of disk space and even RAM size into consideration and CPU speed, there was another perfectly good reason for having a smaller integrated office suite as opposed to a fully functional suite of standalone programs. And that was, it was generally quite a lot cheaper. So for example, you buy Microsoft Works, that was, I don't know, anything from £50 to £100, whereas Microsoft Office started at one time started at a couple of £100 for the Home and Student edition, which Home and Student was a thing that came out with Office XP, and if you wanted the professional version of Office, and let's be honest, you most likely did, that would cost you £500 or above. Whereas if you had something like Microsoft Works, like I said, very, very small outlay. And it's not like a lot of people would be missing a lot of the functionality of Microsoft Office anyway, because in actual fact, a lot of people don't tend to use a lot of the features that are available to them through Microsoft Office. It's said that a lot of people only use about an eighth of the feature set that Microsoft Office has. So, for home or small office or home office applications, Microsoft Works or any one of its contemporaries would be absolutely fine. Now, in schools, most schools did want you to use Microsoft Office, but there was a time when even that was the case, or not the case rather. That time we call the early 90s, and in the early 90s a lot of schools had Apple Macs, and Apple Macs generally came with ClarisWorks. And then you had some schools which had Windows 3.1 machines. which inexplicably also had ClarisWorks installed. So let's go and take a look at that. I know I am away to commit a cardinal sin by running ClarisWorks on top of Windows, but you know what? It's happening. So, ClarisWorks then. Claris was a kind of a sub-company of Apple, kind of a spin-off company. It was the software division, so to speak. And, you know, they had quite a few programs back in the day. There was Claris Impact, Claris Mail, and, you know, other things. But I think the most popular one, or the most famous one, would have been ClarisWorks, especially if, like me, you were at school during the heady 1990s. So, ClarisWorks, I remember the technician at my old school described it as a kid's version of Microsoft Works. And I guess you could be probably right, but hey-ho. So, ClarisWorks, then. It had quite a few different things. Not only did you have a word processor, spreadsheet, or database, and communications, you had drawing and painting. So drawing was kind of a vector drawing app. So, you know, a bit like Corel Draw or, you know, something like that. Adobe Illustrator. So, yeah, again, vector graphics. Good for doing technical drawings, what have you. You also had a paint program, which was a bitmap program. So it was like like Paintbrush on Windows 3.1 or Microsoft Paint on Windows 95 and above. And look at all these colors you get by default. Very nice. So I can do this. There we go. There we go. Isn't that nice? What I liked about ClarisWorks, though, is, well, I guess I like the word processor. ClarisWorks was the first program that I ever used for making databases. But even just the word processor, very simple to use, and it had quite a lot of neat features for formatting. So, while you could open up a font dialog box by going to font and other, you could also just set your font size and style from the menu itself. So in Windows 3.1, right, for Windows 3.1, for example, let's just take a look at that. I always found that quite difficult to, well, when I first started using computers, I didn't know how to set the font size. So it would have never occurred to me to go to character and then all the way down to fonts. I don't know why I didn't do that. It just completely eluded me. I was 6 years old at the time. Absolutely dumb as two short planks. And, you know, I might ask what's changed 25 years later, and I would answer by saying, nothing! Anyway. So, in ClarisWorks, very easy. I want to set the font to Arial, size 14. Or I could go to other and type in a number. Nice. And then if I want to zoom in, well, it's quite easy. I've got the zoom in or zoom out buttons. There we go. So I can take a look at the page. Whoops. It seems to me that I can only zoom out. Oh, there we go. Whoa. So, got the usual formatting stuff. I can go bold. What I also liked, because I was only using Windows Right the first time I ever used ClarisWorks, was the fact that I could set text color. Now on Microsoft Word, way up to Word 97, you got a choice of 16 colors. ClarisWorks, you got all these. Oh yes. You got reds, oranges, purples, turquoises, pinks, all kinds of colours. I mean, okay, I'm cheating on here because this is using 256 colours, so I can't get access to all of these colours. On Windows 3.1 at school, though, it was still 16 colours, so while it would have done its best to give me all of these colours, it would have just been an exercise in dithered text. One thing that I did like on the Mac version of ClarisWorks was the fact that I could have the text in outline. So, you know, the font would just be kind of an outline of itself. Now, there's outline here. Now, if I wanted... now, I would have thought that when I was a kid, I would have thought, oh, if I want to make it like outline of the font, I'll just click in this menu. But that's... no, that's more to do with bullet points and what have you. So, absolutely nothing to do with how it actually looks in terms of the font. So that was the word processor in ClarisWorks. Of course, like I said, I use a database. Very simple to do so. Define fields. So, name, address, dog's name, preferred beer, car registration number. I don't know what kind of a database this is, but there you go. And so address. Dog's name. Preferred beer. And car registration number. Actually, would that not be that? There we go. So, as you can see, very, very simple to make a database, but seems to be very difficult to move on to the next record. I know I know there's going to be the way to do it, and some of you are going to be like, oh, gee, what the hell are you doing? You can't do the database anymore, you dotty. Yeah, I know, it's quite depressing, is this new view. Nice. Oh well. So that's ClarisWorks. As you can see, you know, quite simple, but also quite in its own way quite feature packed. And that was Apple's offering. So what was Microsoft's offering? Well, for the second time, let's welcome Microsoft Works. Now, as you can see, still got the same feature set that we had in Works version 1.0. Got a Works word processor, spreadsheet, database. Again, very easy to use. However, we also have templates and task wizards. This is something that came with I believe Works 2, and it allowed you to do all kinds of things for the home. So anything from an address book to business contacts and inventories, customer profile, file organizer, footnote, form letter, home inventory, letterhead, membership tracker, quick database, student profile. Now, one that I did use at home actually was the letterhead, and this, what it would do is it would go through, the steps of creating a letter, correctly formatting your name and address and the recipient's name and address, and just making it look really nice and professional. Very nice. Or of course you could just start from scratch. So if you have used Microsoft Word, this would be very familiar to you. You've got a toolbar showing your font, the font size, basic formatting, embolden, italicize, underline, alignment, bullet pointed lists, and a table. So again, quite a good word processor with all the features that most people would need, but not too much so as to be overfaced. And yes, you did have a drawing program within Microsoft Works, but it was a wee bit, well, you couldn't just open it as a standalone program. You'd have to insert a drawing into a document. So there you go. You've got Microsoft Draw, which again is a vector-based program. You can have different colors as well. Or you could just use Paintbrush because it was there. Microsoft didn't need to write another painting program, I guess. Also, you've got, while I'm actually on with inserting things into documents, I should probably talk a bit about object linking and embedding. And Road Geek wanted me to do this. Some people who watch Family Guy, you'll get this. He said that the best way to describe object linking and embedding was, he got a picture in my Word document. He got a Word document in my picture. And yeah. Essentially, object linking and embedding, what it is you can take a document from somewhere else. So let's say we'll take a spreadsheet, shall we? So we'll put sales. Let's only do the first quarter. In January, people had the January blues, so they didn't. Yeah, we just had 5. Whatever we sell, we only sold 5 of them. In February, we sold 25 because it was Valentine's Day or something, and in March we sold 35. Okay, so we've got this, and maybe I'm writing a report for the first quarter sales of something, and that another Family Guy reference. So there we go, we have the spreadsheet. Now that just kind of looks like it's there, static. However, well, looking back over the spreadsheet, I'm editing the spreadsheet, I realised actually that January was a better month than I thought it was. We actually sold 7. Shit, but now I've got to go back and edit the Word document. No, I don't. Or I shouldn't do. Okay, so that's an example of object linking and embedding gone wrong. Way, that's went well. Okay, so if it's actually linked and I'm embedded, yeah. Right, let's let's try saving that. Alright, okay, sales first. So what I want to do is, I mean, I could insert a spreadsheet or table, use existing spreadsheet range. Yikes. Oh, maybe I can open the spreadsheet back up. Spreadsheet or table. Use existing spreadsheet range. It's not working, this. There we go. Link to a range from an open. Oh, do I need to actually create the range? Right, okay. Range name. Have I done that right, actually? Yes, I have. So, like I said, made a spreadsheet. Sales first quarter. There we go. So, let's say actually that I was right the first time, that we did only sell 5 in January. I can change that. And there we go. It has actually changed it on the Word document. There we go. Well, I say Word document, the Works word processor. That's something that integrated office suites were good at, generally on their own. Obviously, this functionality became part of the operating system more and more as operating systems became more mature. You know, and it was a part of Windows 3.1. I think it was beefed up in Windows 95. And it's actually quite a nice way of doing things, if you know how to use it, which I obviously do. As you saw there. So I can save that, and I'll save changes to the sales document in Works. Now there was another, well, there were a lot of integrated Office suites, but there's one more that I want to show you that was in the fray. Very largely unknown, but PFS WindowWorks, and that's really, it itself was quite interesting how it actually worked, and it had a few different tools in it. So we had a chart maker, which is separate from the spreadsheet program, spreadsheet, database, terminal. You had an address book and a label maker as well. Now, again, the address book was something that you could do in Works, but it seemed to be its own feature here in PFS WindowWorks. So, again, this should be quite familiar if you've used Microsoft Windows. You've got a toolbar with font size and style. You have alignment. You also have different formatting for different parts of the document. For example, headings and indents and hanging indents. So that kind of gave it a bit more functionality than maybe Microsoft Works or ClarisWorks maybe had. However, I don't think it had color. I don't think you could do color in PFS WindowWorks. Now, while I used ClarisWorks and Microsoft Works in school, actually, and I used them both quite extensively, I didn't actually ever use, I did not ever use PFS WindowWorks, and perhaps it shows, if I'm going to be completely honest. Something that Works had that the others didn't was clip art, and I didn't show you that, but that works like it would in Publisher. What this one has is it looks like it's got the ability to actually put drawings into documents or frames, so you can put frames, different types of frames. That's quite good actually. So PFS WindowWorks' word processor, I think, fancies itself as a pint-sized desktop publishing program. Nice. In fact, it does, because you can just use it in normal word processor mode, or you can actually go into some kind of an edit mode and draw boxes and different frames and banners and I guess some rudimentary form of word art, put pictures in, you know, the usual sort of thing. And then, of course, you have the object linking and embedding object thing. So you can see this is using Windows' own OLE. So there you go. That's PFS WindowWorks' word processor. Again, you've got spreadsheet, kind of a basic spreadsheet, quite easy to use. Got the different formulas all there. You've got different operators. So this, I think, is quite useful if you're not kind of used to spreadsheets. There's a lot of things basically just offered to you. And then you'll have, I believe, a flat file database. A lot of these were flat file databases. Don't think you had any kind of multi kind of table relational databases in any of these integrated programs. Although please stop me if I'm wrong. So, what were the drawbacks of pieces of software like this? Well, essentially, if you bought an integrated office suite like Microsoft Works or ClarisWorks, you basically got the lot, and you were stuck with that. And people found that, you know, people said that if they wanted to change their word processor, for example, they didn't want to have to change their spreadsheet and database at the same time. And I guess it just seemed wasteful, especially on smaller computers, to have two programs that do the same thing. For example, two word processors. Now, I know on this install of Windows I have multiple integrated office suites, which is very wasteful. But I also have Microsoft Word. A lot of people did actually do that in the later years. In fact, computer manufacturers would obviously would also do that, and Microsoft themselves. What they would do would be to give you a copy of Microsoft Works, but also provide a copy of Microsoft Word. Because while the Works word processor did provide a lot of the word processing functionality that people wanted, a lot of people needed Microsoft Word because, well, that became the standard, especially in the 90s. Microsoft Office came along and became the standard. Now, while a lot of people at one time may not have needed the full functionality of Microsoft Office at home, they probably did feel that they wanted access to Microsoft Word, at the very least. So, some people will have actually went out and bought Microsoft Word. Like I said, some computer manufacturers installed Word on computers alongside Microsoft Works. And, like I said, Microsoft, in the Works Suite program, they actually did provide Microsoft Word alongside Microsoft Works as well. So they themselves knew that the Works word processor was just not cutting the mustard as much as it maybe once did. And obviously, as time has went by, people have actually looked to more fully featured Office suites instead of the integrated solutions that I've shown here. Now, obviously, some of these programs have actually fallen by the wayside. ClarisWorks went back to its original name of AppleWorks sometime in the late 1990s. And then it actually died and in the 2000s and was replaced with Apple's iWork, which was trying to be a competitor to Microsoft Office, but only really has Pages, Numbers, and Keynote, which is a word processor, spreadsheet program, and presentation program, respectively. Of course, the use of Microsoft PowerPoint actually became quite widespread. Certainly in the 2000s, more and more people were using it. So having a presentation package actually became quite essential for a lot of people who use their computer for productivity. And of course, none of the integrated Office solutions seen here had a presentation program. So because of that, people actually started moving towards Microsoft Office and its contemporaries. Microsoft Works itself did last quite a while actually, but it too has now disappeared. PFS WindowWorks has, well, I don't really know what happened to that. I think that did disappear fairly quickly. It wasn't really that popular, wasn't really that well known, so it, I think it just quietly died. So while some integrated Office suites did die, others did survive. So Microsoft Works, for example, went to live on up until the very late 2000s, when it was actually replaced. Well, it was killed off in favour of Microsoft Office. Now, what happened with Microsoft Works is that the last version, version 9.0, was offered both as paid software or as ad-supported freeware. But the ads on it were very small, very minimalistic, and were basically just a small box saying, why don't you buy Office 365 or something, or Microsoft Office is much better and it's my favourite. Of course, Microsoft Works in 2010 was superseded by Microsoft Office Starter Edition. And what Office Starter Edition was cut down ad-supported versions of Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel that were made to OEMs to install on PCs that they were going to sell to the general public. Now, what the starter version of Microsoft Office did was when you started it, it would give you the option of inputting a key for a more fully featured version of Office, purchasing a more fully featured version of Office, or just using the starter edition, which was fine for a lot of people, and I personally did like to install it on people's computers, but sadly it's no longer compatible with Windows 10. And anyway, Microsoft wants us all to buy Office 365, because of course they do. But up until then, Microsoft Works was just chaving away. Yes, it did have some updates. This is Microsoft Works version 4.5. So Microsoft Works did get a better toolbar at the very least, and of course it had integration for different programs that were featured as part of Works Suite. And actually, Works 9.0 would happily integrate the basic programs of Microsoft Office as well. So you could launch Microsoft Word, Excel and PowerPoint from the Works Task Launcher. How's about that? Microsoft Office itself did start to have some integration in it. So, for example, you had the Microsoft Office toolbar, which is not enabled on here. Whoops. You also had, from Office 95 onwards, these two shortcuts on the Start menu. And what these would do is allow you to create or open a new Office document. Any Office document in any Microsoft Office application. So here I can create an Access database, Word document, Excel spreadsheet, a binder, which is a thing to basically keep a whole bunch of documents in. that's actually what it does. Allows you to group documents together in a binder. Quite good for projects if you've got a lot of documents floating about. Although nobody really ever used it, or nobody really ever taught others how to use it. It was just kind of there. So, naturally, it was discontinued later on, because nobody ever used it. Then you've got Microsoft PowerPoint. Just like Microsoft Works, you've also got different types of templates and different wizards for creating things like memos or pleading wizard. That's a legal thing. Publications, newsletter wizard, and that's in Microsoft Word. That's not even counting what Microsoft Publisher would let you do. So there's a lot of integration in Microsoft Office, which is actually a suite of standalone Office applications. And this integration also further raised the question, why have an integrated package like Microsoft Works? But if you want to talk about integration and having your own all under one roof solution, well, nobody quite managed to master it like Sun did. What they did, and you're going to see here, is, well, we need to register it, but not only did you have all under one roof kind of launcher for word processor or spreadsheet or presentation or drawing, HTML document, you got mail client, frame set, master documents, charts, images, formulas, no database. No database, though. You also had what looked like its own shell, complete with its own start menu that admittedly would give you access to the Windows components, and Windows programs as well. But I mean, this is... Are we quite sure? Are we serious here? Are we serious? We've got the desktop, all the desktop icons. Let's launch Microsoft Works from within StarOffice, because why not? In fact, let's go the whole hog. Why not let's open Microsoft Word? Right, I want to write a Word document. There we go, Microsoft Word. But wait a minute. This has got its own word processor. Yes, it does. It does have its own word processor. And we're going to look at it now. Now, this might look a wee bit familiar to users of various open source Office suites of late, and we're going to be coming back to this, because obviously StarOffice became LibreOffice, and, well, it didn't have this full kind of desktop replacement thing. But that's what Sun Microsystems were doing, and, I mean, I remember this being advertised and written about favourably, actually, in Computer Active, as well as other computer magazines. A lot of people liked StarOffice. But by the time I got around to using it, it became LibreOffice, and there wasn't this shell thing. But that's pretty neat. I must admit, that is pretty neat. Everything literally under one roof. You never need to leave your Office suite. Look at that. So, that's integrated Office suite. And you probably think they are but a distant memory now. Well, come with me, because I would like to prove you otherwise. So, this is a very modern operating system. About as modern as you can get. It's this year's release of Kubuntu 1904. No integrated Office suite a la Microsoft Works in here. No? Well, if we go to the application launcher menu, we see that it has crashed. And when it's done crashing, we can go to Applications, Office. Now, we see that LibreOffice has standalone applications. just like Microsoft Office. Database, spreadsheet, drawing program, presentations program, and a mathematical formula writing program, as well as a word processor. However, we also have this LibreOffice application. So, what does that do? Well, if we launch it, it is a launcher from which you can launch your different OpenOffice or LibreOffice components or programs or whatever you want to call them. And you've even got extensions. I don't know what kind of ilk of extensions you can get, but yeah, I've just been able to press that button and now it's opened a Firefox window. Nice. So you have templates, just like you would in Microsoft Works. Recent files, open file, just like the OpenOffice document function that we saw in Office 97. You can open any type of LibreOffice document from here. Now, you might wonder what LibreOffice is. Well, LibreOffice is actually an open source fork of OpenOffice, which itself was the open source fork of StarOffice. So, if we start up a writer document, then we see that it's very similar to that StarOffice word processor that we saw just a few minutes ago, although it has changed a wee bit. There's no heading, there's no style dialog box, formatting style dialog box anymore, but I'm sure you can still get it. In fact, yes, you can. There it is. So this is a lot like Microsoft Office. A lot of people actually do use this. And what is more, it is actually free and has been since the days of OpenOffice in 2001, 2002. So a lot of people who could not afford Microsoft Office have just basically moved on to this. Because for a lot of people, it'll do what you want Microsoft Office to do. It'll open Word documents absolutely fine. It'll edit Word documents, save Word documents. It will work with Excel spreadsheets and PowerPoint presentations. Although the PowerPoint presentation thing does seem to be the fly in the ointment with a lot of these Office suites. They just can't seem to get the formatting quite right like PowerPoint can. So if you open a PowerPoint presentation in, I think, is it called Impress, or in Keynote, even though that's a paid for solution, or in OnlyOffice, which is something we're going to be looking at, then it's just not going to look right. And I'm guessing vice versa. If you save something out of either any of those programs as a PowerPoint file, you open it up in PowerPoint, all the formatting is going to be a bit messed up. But that aside, for most people, this is fine as an Office suite. I mean, you don't have Outlook, but then there's mail programs that are like Outlook. For most people who don't need Exchange support, you've got Thunderbird. For those that do, you've got Evolution Mail. So, with things like this around, Microsoft Works, with its limited feature set, never really stood a chance. So that is LibreOffice. Comes with pretty much every Linux distro. Well, I say pretty much everyone, because there are some that don't include it, but they're few and far between. Generally speaking, it is a Linux staple. You can get it on Windows. However, if you're looking for something a bit different, there is another way you can go. And this is something that Sansui 350A has been waxing lyrical about for quite some time. Let me introduce you people to another free Office suite called OnlyOffice. Now, there is a cloud version, a bit like Office 365, which does cost. But there is the desktop version, which is sadly a wee bit slow. A wee bit slower than I'd maybe like. But it is free, and it is all integrated. It has a word processor, spreadsheet program, and a presentation package. No database, but I mean, the needs of the average home user has changed. They maybe don't need a database program. So, let's open OnlyOffice, and if you've used Microsoft Office in the last 6 years or so, well, as you can see, I mean, it is a bit slow, but there you are. This is essentially Microsoft Office. I mean, you could make believe that this was Office 2013 or something. It looks exactly like it. Even down to the blue-headed top of the ribbon. In fact, it has the ribbon interface if you're into that. But yeah, it literally is very much like Microsoft Office. And you can go back to the OnlyOffice. You can open a spreadsheet. So there you go. So this is integrated very much in the same way that Microsoft Works, ClarisWorks, PFS WindowWorks, and Lotus Works was. I've never seen a shortcut to the standalone editors. But there you go. So, the integrated Office suite is very much alive and well. I mean, some of them have various levels of integration, but OnlyOffice is basically... I think it's basically what happens if you tried to turn Office 2013 into Microsoft Works. You get OnlyOffice. It's like having Microsoft Works, but for the modern times. And not only is it available on Linux, I mean, I've just kind of come into Linux just to show you it here because LibreOffice was also here. I thought I'd show you. It all in that, and show off a different array of operating systems. You can get OnlyOffice on Microsoft Windows, and not only can you get OnlyOffice on Windows 10, you can download the latest version of OnlyOffice for Windows XP. So if you're still using an XP box, you can have this. How's about that? Now, I wouldn't recommend that you actually continue to use XP as a daily drive machine, but if you had an XP box, you wanted to do basic Office tasks, you wanted to keep it offline, and I can't stress that enough, keep it offline, then you have a modern Office suite. So there we go. So I think this will do it for this look at the integrated Office suite. So I know this video's been a wee bit long and rambly, but all the same, I hope you've enjoyed this trip down memory lane. And this wee look into the present. And I hope to see you all in my next video. Cheery bye.